Wow. There were a lot of Niner writers who were suggesting that the Raiders looked like the better team on the field in the joint practices. You were there for it.
Yeah,
I know you were a ways away, but
yeah.
what do you think? Is that Niner writers trying to be salacious and get people fired up? Or do you think the Raiders really did look better than the 49ers in the 2 days?
I mean, to each their own. Like the Niners rise would be what Mayoko, Barrows, all of them are reporting that they dominated.
Well, I don't know if those guys specifically, but I saw in a couple different spots that
Okay.
people were like, "Hey, the Raiders actually look better than the Niners." You couldn't tell which team was a Super Bowl contender and which team, was in a kind of a rebuild.
Yeah. I To me it was pretty much equal. I don't put too much stock into that because you don't know what on any given play what they're being told to do. Now I know in team drills you can see the interceptions and all of that, but if someone to ask me, did someone just blow away? Like if it was a game tomorrow, like oh man, domination. Like I wouldn't go as far as saying that. I would say it was a pretty even matchup. Like for me, when I look at training camp, I look for the individual matchups and the fundamentals and the techniques that are being taught up front. As far as like if there's one team that just like blows the other team out of the water, then that's one thing. But I didn't see that from my vantage point. I can only speak for myself, but I don't think that the Niners were dominated by the Raiders. And dominated wouldn't be a word. Maybe slightly had the advantage. You know what I mean? But maybe because of interceptions, I don't know why they would say dominate. But I thought it was pretty certain aspects of practice, like the tackle and stunts, right? That we were watching that was up close. I thought that was a pretty evenly matched ball game, right? Offensive line, defensive line on both teams, right? So let's start there. And then you go into the wide receiver versus DBs. I thought that was a pretty even matchup there. When you get in the team drills, that's when I couldn't really see much. So maybe they had a stronger vantage point, but from what I reported, I said it was pretty evenly matched up all the way through.
East Coast Red and Gold podcast are big fans of you, Rye. And
Oh,
they said, Krug, put this up. What's up, Ryan? We miss you.
hey,
There
what's
you
going
go.
on? How you doing?
Yeah, I was just on their podcast the other day. Good to see you. And then Orange Chicken says Beast Rider was spot on his draft predictions. He knows his stuff. Yeah, that's how we were trying to hook up during the draft because Raya's all over the draft just like I am. And who are your personal favorites in the draft if you can remember? I know it's been a ways back to April now. Who are guys that you really loved that maybe went elsewhere?
I like Peter Skoronsky. I'm a throwback type of a guy,
The Tennessee offensive lineman from
yeah,
Northwestern. Northwestern's produced some really, really good linemen the last few years. Slater.
yes, yeah. Rashawn Slater was one. They had a few guys. I thought they had another guy, but anyways,
Yeah, I can't remember the other guy, but I know Rashawn Slater went to the Chargers.
correct.
But
Correct.
Skoronski, I thought was a great pick by Vrabel and Tennessee.
Him, I like Devin Witherspoon a lot. I think. Dude,
I do too.
I think
From
Seattle, Legion of Boom is coming back. I'm sorry, I think it's coming back. It's not. Oh, you're a Raider now. No, I keep it 100 all the time. Look, Devin Witherspoon is going to be
best player in the draft, maybe.
Defensive rookie of the year, definitely. That can be something. And with Tariq Woolen on the other side, oh my, come on.
Yeah, and Kobe Bryant.
There you go.
I don't know if you watched their game last night, but Kobe Bryant made some great plays too against the Vikings.
The Cincinnati, yeah.
Yeah, University of Cincinnati, yep.
So I don't know how John Schneider and Pete Carroll do it, but it seems like it wasn't far removed that they were the laughing stock of the NFC West. Now they're like, oh man, here come the Seahawks again with Abraham Lucas, and they drafted offensive line, and
Charles
that was
Cross,
a year ago, and Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. So it's like, what the heck's going on? But I really like Peter Skoronsky, Devin Witherspoon. Bijan Robinson is a guy who I really like. I know he's a running back, but I like Bijan Robinson coming out.
That was great.
I thought he was a steal. I like Jack Campbell. I think he's a player that for the Detroit Lions, that's going to be good.
From Iowa. Iowa had a great defense. No offense, but a great defense.
And there's some overrated guys. I think Kalijah Cansey is a little bit overrated when I graded his film. I know that's the unconventional wisdom, but I think it's a little bit overrated.
He's in Tampa's camp. He's kind of an Aaron Donald body type. He's probably he had a calf pull the other day. I saw.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Steve. But yeah, he's a guy that I thought was a little bit overrated. But a guy who I really, really liked was Nolan Smith. And
went to Philly.
Yeah, he's a guy who I really think is going to create waves. I thought that the Philadelphia Eagles GM Howie Roseman did a really good job in finding talent, and the Georgia Bulldogs, they just keep getting stronger with Jalen Carter there. But Nolan Smith is a guy who could be the sleeper that should have been drafted a lot higher than number 30.
Yeah,
I
no,
had
I
him at
agree.
top 15. I had him as a top 15 pick.
Michael McCann says, question for Ryan. What's your prediction? Does Jimmy G outperform the entire 49er quarterback room in the upcoming season? Also, when are you going to go live again?
um, I don't know. How would you go about making that prediction? Because
I mean, I like Jimmy G. I think Jimmy G, to be honest, is an upgrade from Derek Carr. Here's
correct.
why. Because I think Derek Carr, was not as competitive as Jimmy G. He would throw the ball away. He was more about self-preservation. He
Yeah.
didn't want to take a hit, so much
Right.
so that he would throw the ball away. Jimmy G's going to hold the ball longer.
Yeah.
He's going to let Devontae, work his way open with double moves down the field. And I
Right.
know that Carr and Devontae had a kinship going back to Fresno, but I just think that Jimmy, you're going to like the competitor that Jimmy is more so than what Carr had become in recent years. I also think Jimmy knows this offense.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I mean, he knows this offense going back to New England. So not only can he run the offense, he can help teach the offense. And I think that's a big part of it too. So I kind of like Jimmy as an upgrade. As far as comparing him to Brock Purdy or Trey Lance,
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy's more experienced, but I think Purdy's better in what the Niners do, which is the play action game, the bootleg game. Jimmy always struggled in the play action when he would have to turn his back on the defense and then turn back around. He
Yeah.
always needed an extra second to kind of reassess, kind of recalibrate where everybody was, his receivers, the defenders. Where Purdy's got that sense where he turns around, and as he's turning around, he's throwing the ball.
Yeah.
He doesn't need that second. It's like he knows where everybody's going to be. That's the advantage that I think Purdy has on Jimmy. I think also Purdy's a little bit more accurate and has a little bit more escapability speed.
Mhm.
I think Jimmy, though, is going to give you guys a great leader. Guys like Jimmy. Guys play hard for Jimmy. He's a very mature. He's got a lot of mental maturity. I think he's going to be the perfect guy to step into that room and kind of become their leader. So I like it from a leadership standpoint. I like him more than Carr. But what are you hearing from Ziegler, from McDaniels, from the players? What kinds of things are they saying about Jimmy thus far?
Same thing from San Francisco when I covered him in San Francisco is, leader. He's a leader in the locker room. He's a guy that is very approachable outside the locker room. So that's why guys gravitate toward him. That's why George Kittle's all of the team captains gravitate towards Jimmy Garoppolo for a reason, right? They all want to hang out outside because he's just a good guy in general, right? Forget football aside. But yeah, good leader, very decisive, very smart with his reads, gets it from the go, very methodical in what he does. And they think that in their minds, they got an upgrade over Derek Carr because he is familiar with Coach McDaniels. He is familiar with Coach Shaplinsky, who I got to know very well over the last 2 years here. And so you guys got to remember that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have a playbook coming into the NFL. It was Coach Shaplinsky, who is now with the Las Vegas Raiders, who kind of helped him with that process. So again, this goes way back, even before Jimmy Garoppolo was with the San Francisco 49ers. It's going back to the Patriot days. And I think that dynamic alone is what holds a lot of weight because they say, hey, look, we know what Jimmy was coming out. We know what he can do in the NFL because he's proven to do it in San Francisco. Hopefully, as long as he stays healthy, the hope is everything's going to go and trending in the right direction. Now, whether that is going to be something that comes to fruition, time will tell.